A constitutional court judgment calls for a president to resign, opposition parties making noise from every direction, and South Africans online suddenly becoming constitutional experts overnight. When politics trends in South Africa, everybody suddenly acts like they passed law school with distinction. But this situation involving President Cyril Ramaphosa was serious because it sparked a huge national debate about accountability, constitutional law, and leadership. But before we break it down, let's listen to what he had to say. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment and share. Now let's get back to the video.
My fellow South Africans, while there have been calls in some circles that I should resign, nothing in the Constitutional Court judgment compels me to resign my office. The Constitutional Court made no finding of any kind regarding my alleged conduct. The court made no finding on whether there was prima facie evidence of misconduct, nor if the alleged conduct, if established, justifies impeachment and the removal of the president. Instead, the Constitutional Court judgment reinforces the principles, the rights and processes underpinning our constitutional order. This explicitly includes the right to take the report of the independent panel on review. I therefore respectfully want to make it clear that I will not resign. To do so would be to preempt a process defined by the Constitution. To do so would be to give credence to a panel report that unfortunately has grave flaws. To do so would be to abdicate the responsibility that I assumed when I became President of the Republic. To resign now would be to give in to those who seek to reverse the renewal of our society, the rebuilding of our institutions, and the prosecution of the end to prosecution. I fully intend to continue serving the people of South Africa and to advance their interests. There is still so much to be done. 8 years ago, we set out on a new path for our country. Even as we set out on this new path, we knew that progress would not be achieved overnight. We declared our firm intention to put behind us the era of diminished trust in public institutions and the diminished confidence in its leaders.
After the Constitutional Court ruling, many people expected Ramaphosa to step down. Social media was on fire. Political analysts were debating non-stop. Opposition parties were demanding action. But then Ramaphosa came out with a strong response and basically said, "I will not resign." Now that shocked a lot of people. In his statement, Ramaphosa argued that the Constitutional Court judgment did not require him to leave office. According to him, the court made no finding about whether he committed misconduct and did not conclude that there was enough evidence to justify impeachment or removal. In simple terms, Ramaphosa's argument was this: people are calling for my resignation, but legally and constitutionally, there is no ruling forcing me to resign. And honestly, that distinction is important. Because in politics, public anger and constitutional procedure are not always the same thing. Ramaphosa argued that South Africa is governed by constitutional processes, not emotions, hashtags, or pressure from social media. And let's be honest, South Africans online can turn any political issue into a full-time war zone. 1 minute people are discussing football results, the next minute everybody is typing paragraphs about democracy like they're preparing for parliament. But beneath the jokes, Ramaphosa's main point was serious. He believed resigning immediately would interfere with a constitutional process that was still unfolding. He argued that stepping down would preempt the review process and give legitimacy to what he described as a flawed panel report. Supporters of Ramaphosa agreed with him strongly. Their argument was that democracy must follow due process. They believed presidents should not be forced out simply because of political pressure before legal processes are completed. And to be fair, due process matters in any democracy. Imagine getting fired from your job because rumors started spreading before an investigation was completed. Most people would say, at least let me defend myself first. So Ramaphosa's supporters believed he also deserved constitutional fairness. Another important point he made was that the court never declared him guilty of wrongdoing. That became a major talking point because many people online were speaking as if the court had already reached a final conclusion against him, while Ramaphosa insisted that was not true. But critics saw things very differently. For them, this was not just about legal technicalities. It was about trust, ethics, and accountability. Many critics argued that even if the court did not directly order him to resign, the controversy itself damaged the credibility of the presidency. And honestly, South Africans have become extremely sensitive to political scandals after years of corruption controversies, state capture discussions, and constant headlines involving government drama. Some citizens hear the words investigation or panel report and immediately think, here we go again. So critics believed stronger accountability was needed from leaders, especially at the highest level of government. And that's where the country became deeply divided. One side believed Ramaphosa was protecting constitutional democracy by insisting on proper legal process. The other side believed true leadership sometimes requires stepping aside even before legal processes are completed, especially when public trust is affected. And honestly, both sides believed they were defending democracy. That's what made this debate so important. It wasn't just about one politician. It became a larger discussion about how democracy should work in South Africa. Should public pressure force leaders out quickly? Or should constitutional procedure always come first, even during controversy? Those are not small questions. Ramaphosa also argued that resigning would help people who wanted to reverse efforts to rebuild institutions and renew public trust after difficult political years in South Africa. Supporters saw him as someone trying to stabilize institutions and continue reform efforts. Critics believed accountability should come before political survival. Again, the country was divided right down the middle. And let's be honest, politics in South Africa is never quiet. Every debate becomes dramatic. Twitter turns into a battlefield. WhatsApp groups become mini-parliaments. Suddenly your uncle at the Braai is explaining constitutional law while burning the meat at the same time. But beneath all the noise, this situation highlighted something important about South Africa's democracy. The debates happened openly through courts, media discussions, political parties, and public conversation. People argued fiercely, but the arguments were still centered around constitutional principles and democratic institutions. And that matters. Because democracy is messy. People disagree loudly. Political tensions rise. Citizens become frustrated. But these debates are part of how democratic societies function. At the end of the day, Ramaphosa's refusal to resign was not just a political decision. It was also a constitutional argument. He believed leadership decisions should follow legal processes rather than public pressure alone. Some South Africans supported that completely. Others rejected it completely. And that debate will probably continue for a long time. But one thing nobody can deny is that this became one of the biggest political conversations in modern South African politics. Because in this country, politics is never boring. Never.